All right, well, let's get back to the school funding issue again, more focused, and that's what they're going to be focused on here in the legislature beginning on the 23rd. We actually had a question on Facebook Live that was asking why the 23rd. Is 7 days really enough to get everything resolved and satisfy the Supreme Court?
It is. People familiar with the legislative process, they're familiar with human nature. People don't do things until they have to do things, is what tends to happen. Legislators will come in, they'll have a lot of different ideas, and it's typically in the legislative process, things don't happen until they have to happen. And that's when everybody says, well, okay, I guess I could try to do this. And you can get to a majority of votes in the House and the Senate. It happens virtually every year in the State House here, and this is sufficient amount of time. I wish the process were different. I wish that what would have happened is on sine die a week ago, they'd have passed the funding bill to deal with that, but people's attitudes and opinions were all over the place. The court didn't give us hardly any time to be able to decide that then. They had issued the opinion 5 p.m. Friday, Memorial Day weekend. We got one business day until the legislature's meeting. So it's sufficient amount of time, but it will be a difficult process. Special sessions are difficult and unusual, but we've got a key situation here. My key point with it is we shouldn't allow a constitutional dispute between branches of government to cause us to be where we are. And I think we ought to put the money in, and I do think we ought to get off this cycle of litigation, which I've called for some time.
Well, let's go ahead and talk about the Supreme Court. I know that basic history class is, the Supreme Court's there to make sure that they're supposed to interpret the law and make their rulings that way. And that's why we have these three branches of government, to make sure that everybody's playing nice in a sense. So with what they did, their ruling and their decision, isn't that their job? Isn't that what they're supposed to do? Even though, yes, it is up to the legislator to make sure that the funds are where they're supposed to be. It is their job. But isn't it the court's job to make sure that that's being done properly?
Well, you've got a number of other courts in the country having similar situations saying this is the role of the legislature. They are the appropriator by definition in the Constitution. And not only are they the appropriator, this is a major function that the legislature has. This is their major power, is the power of the purse. And they are constitutional officers as well. I've been a legislator, and I think most people look at it saying we've migrated way too many decisions to the court that ought to be left to legislative bodies to be able to handle. And you've got other courts in the country that have said, here's one court said, quote, accordingly, we decline to usurp legislative authority by issuing reform dictates from on high, supplanting lawmakers' policy wisdom with our own. And think about this too, Sean. We're on an issue about equalization. Okay, that's what this is about, equalizing funds. But we don't fully equalize. We equalized 81.2%. Well, why don't you fully equalize? Well, somebody made a judgment call that 81.2% is close enough to get things equalized so that a student in Baxter Springs gets similar type of education opportunity as a student in Blue Valley schools in Kansas City. Well, why shouldn't it be 100%? Somebody made a judgment. Well, why not a little bit lower? And so you're in this sort of process now. And the bigger point that I have about this is really not the court's decision on equalization. It's the remedy here. The remedy of closing the schools down over $38 million of mostly property tax relief. That is, I think, just an extraordinary remedy given the situation we're in.
So where do we go from here? I mean, I know you're obviously going to be watching very closely once the 23rd gets here and we go through the process, but the legislature had, as you said, they didn't have a consensus on sine die, and I don't know, having sat through most of the hearings and things throughout the session, how much more together they're going to be 3 weeks later, but let's make it the bottom line. Will schools open on July 1st, in your opinion?
Oh, I believe they will. I believe they will. That the legislature will look at this, and I think people will try to do things to keep this from happening again. but I think they will, and particularly given the sum we're talking about. The other thing that the court had the opportunity to do is the legislature put a severability clause in this bill, saying that if you find one part unconstitutional but the rest is constitutional, let the rest operate. And the court wouldn't exercise that. That would have narrowed us down to 20% of the funding stream instead of 100%. And they also found that what the legislature had done on the capital outlays budget, which is another piece of this that is equalized, they said, well, your equalization there is good. Legislature applied the same formula from there to the LOB, and they said, well, we won't accept it there. And you're going, why is this acceptable in one place but not another? Well, here's a judgment call that they said one piece is bigger than the other, and we're not willing to do that.
So is there a remedy you would suggest to the legislature to stop this cycle of litigation, and if so, what is it?
I think there's a series of different ways to go at this. Really, I think what we need to do right now is let's get by this situation that we're in. Let's look at some remedies that we can do, and let's get prepared to work on a new school finance formula next year.
Let's go ahead and we're not going to go ahead and take a break because we've only just got a couple of minutes left with you, and we love the conversation, and mind you, we're going to continue the conversation obviously online, but let's go ahead and take a look at the outcry, the public outcry. Folks are like they're only hearing what they want to hear. So, hold on, let me rephrase that, because obviously I've got to rethink this because I want to say it correctly. Yesterday we had talked about in the press conference that when it comes to the public outcry, you believe that maybe they're hearing only the one side because not all sides are being presented properly. But do you hear this public outcry? Do you hear what these people, the folks of Kansas are saying? And what would your response directly to these individuals who are watching, who are listening right now? What would you tell them to help them understand your side?
Well, I would tell them I'm going to do everything I can to keep the schools open. I would tell them that every year I've been in office, we have increased funding to K-12 education. About 30% of that has been CAPERS, but the rest has been in other places. I'd tell them we've put more money even from outside of the school funding system, from welfare dollars into the education system, from Jobs for America's Graduates to a reading program, that we've put funds in K-12. I think what most people have been hearing is that the K-12 system has been cut from the state, which is not true. That has not happened while I've been in office. Now, it happened prior to my coming to office, but it has not happened while I've been in office. And we've continued to fund this. Now, some people say we haven't kept up with the rate of inflation. That may be. I haven't checked that piece of it out. But we have continued to put more funds, and we've got a good education system in this state. The K-12 system in this state's got some nice rankings. 8th ranked in the country on outcomes by Kansas Association of School Boards was noting this. This is a good education system. We put more money in it. We've got the pension system now back in a solvency position. And I would hope that we could get this on through so we don't have the close down done by the courts in Kansas.
All right, now you're some have called it a lame duck into your career. You don't have much longer because you can't run for re-election, obviously. What are your plans after this? I mean, you've gone through quite a bit. Yeah,
no, I don't. I've got plenty to do between now and then. Oh, and by the way, those are the people watching on your social media. My bolo tie is for the Potawatomis and the CAW are having their powwows coming up, and the Potawatomi powwow is this weekend up north of Topeka. So anybody interested in going, they ought to do it. They'll have great dancers from all over the country coming in. It'll be a great get-together.
We've only got about 4 more minutes here with you. Any other questions, Nick, that you want to bring up? And folks, you have your chance to ask last-minute questions here on Facebook.
Yeah, a question was asked by one of the reporters at the press conference yesterday, which was, why wait till yesterday to see you talking about this? We've had when we've had the budget downturns, it's been Sean Sullivan talking. Eileen and us talk every day.